Hi, Courtney
Hi.
and Laura. Welcome. We're so happy to have you today. I just want to share a little bit about both of you so we can have a sense of what you're going to be talking about. So thank you so much for being here. Today, Courtney and Laura will be sharing about connecting students with nature, exploring a university course that impacts students' well-being through time outdoors. I want to share that Courtney and Laura are both certified ANFT guides and professors at Trinity University in San Antonio, Texas. And they are both members of an interdisciplinary research team investigating the effects of natural environments on college students and well-being. So again, thank you so much for being here, Courtney and Laura, and we look forward to hearing what you want to share with us.
Okay, we're going to get into share screen, I believe. The green here. You do it. Give us just a sec. Yep. Share. Wait. Yeah. View. All right. There we go. All right, we'll get started. Thank you all for being here. Laura and I have been working on this line of inquiry for a while now, and really want to speak to you more about how we've worked to develop this into a course that we've been able to use with our undergrad students. And we'll get down to where we're talking about the research, but we can tell you the impacts this has been having on them. So we're going to start with the origins, of the course, kind of why we got here, why we started. We're going to go over the framework of the design, and with this, talk a little bit about the curriculum as far as the content, research, and practice. Those three elements you're going to hear us talking about repeatedly, because those three elements are something that we wanted to really infuse throughout the course. And then briefly talk about the effects of the course on student well-being. We do have some other publications that really dig into that, but we'll briefly mention it. And then just some things that we've learned, maybe the hard way in some instances, for anybody who's interested in working with students in this way. Maybe just some ideas for you to think about. So we're trying to advance the slides. There we go. Okay. So quite a while ago in 2018, academic year 2018, 2019, we received a grant. It was a Productive Collisions grant, which really looked at creating interdisciplinary research teams. And we wanted to start looking at the idea of how we could incorporate nature as a way to help our students. We were seeing a lot of the anxiety, just in general, stress that they had at the time. So it's Laura and myself who are in teacher education. We have a science educator who's on our team, a statistician, and then we also had a biology professor who was working with us. And at the time, 4 out of the 5 of us had children who were late high school, early college, and we were just seeing the stress levels that were happening. And ironically, this was right before we went into COVID, where it was actually going to jump up really fast. So in 2019, we started conducting research with some of our undergraduate and our pre-service graduate students, kind of replicating studies that were already out there. And in 2020, we were going to be doing our ANFT certification. And I think we were like the second cohort that got shifted to online because of COVID. So we did start and finish that training. Laura's Harvest Project was actually creating the outline for the initial course development. So that's when that was developed. And in fall of 2021, we've offered it for the first time, and we offer it every fall. We've offered it since then.
So this is basically a little bit of the framework of the course. It started out as a 3-hour class. Our university has now shifted to mostly 4-hour classes. So we shifted to that last year. Intentionally, it has no prerequisites because we want anyone to be able to take it. It combines theory, research, and practice, and we'll talk about how we do that in a minute. Probably most importantly, it's cross-listed as it's part of the environmental studies program, part of education, but it also counts for 2 general education requirements. We're a liberal arts university, so students have to take a breadth of courses. And we wanted that intentionally so that anyone could take the course and get a credit that they needed to count for something, because students don't have time to take things that don't count for something. Because that's what our students kept telling us, is they didn't have time to go outside and relax and soak up the sun and everything. So it's important that we put this on a 3-hour block on Wednesday afternoons. We teach it from 2:30 to 5:30. And we commit that at least 50% of our class will be outside. Usually a field trip is at least every other week. We are off campus in a park or a natural space or some kind of a school. So typically we use for field trips 4 urban parks that are natural areas. One of those is we use kayaks and canoes. So it's an on-water day. Then we do a full day field trip at a state park with the river, which we're doing that actually coming up next Wednesday, the 23rd. We're going to go out to one of the state parks here near us. We go to the Botanical Garden in San Antonio and to a nature preschool. The texts we use Ben Page's Healing Trees. We use Lou's Last Child in the Woods, and then a lot of original research articles. And we'll share some of the research that we use in the chat, a link to a Google Doc we compiled with lots of the articles that we feel like are important. It's also important to know that we want this course to be supporting their well-being and decreasing stress, rumination, and things like that. So there are no exams. This is not a traditional course. However, to ensure that they do read the articles, we do have weekly quizzes, but they get 2 attempts to do the quiz. So hopefully that relieves stress and students aren't too stressed out about that. So this is the 4th year we taught the course. Last year, we won an award for it from our local newspaper here. It was the San Antonio Light Award. And we have a link we're going to put into, okay, Courtney put a bunch of links in the chat. There's also a link to our Trinity University magazine did a lead article on the course last winter. So you can read a little bit more about that because it's a unique class, and we'll explain a little bit more about why it's unique in a minute.
Okay, so for our curricular units, there's a lot of things that we need to incorporate because the students can get credit across different areas. So we really want to talk about why nature is important for well-being across different areas. We really get the research in. So having students read those selected research articles in a variety of research disciplines, I guess, coming in from different perspectives, talk about the theory, and then what are the mechanisms that might be at play. Last year, out of 30 students, we had, I don't know, 16 or 17 different majors represented. So we do have a lot of STEM students who really want to know like the theories and the mechanisms of why these benefits are happening to our body. We do incorporate some school visits. How do we help kids connect? We find that with our college age students that we're having to do some reconnection with them, that they're not comfortable outside. And it's kind of pushing them to some of their edges. And so we'll look at how we can work with young children in schools in order to keep them engaged and comfortable and just very familiar and see themselves as part of nature. And then we really also want to look at equity and inclusion. How can we ensure that nature in the outdoors is available and accessible to different populations of people and just across areas. Sorry, I'm trying to make the slides go at the same time. So with the curriculum focus, we said that we really work in content, what nature is, what do we know about how that connects with well-being? And then we talk specifically about ways of knowing. There is a scientific way of knowing, which we introduced, but there are other ways of knowing that Laura's going to talk about in just a little bit. For the research, we have them do we read selected research, but they also run their own data on their own bodies. So, they're 18 to 22 and they can say, oh yeah, that's the research, but I'm different, I'm unique, which they are. So we have them run their own data on themselves with some pre and post. So on Wednesday, they'll be taking pre-data or pre-surveys. They'll spend the day outside and they'll take post. So then they can compare, okay, the research says this, how does my personal body respond? And how do I match up with that? That's always very impactful with them. And then for practice, we'll go over some different assignments that we do to help them kind of develop their own practice and their own habits. They're going to help them feel more connected and more comfortable using natural spaces around them. this is something that our research team has put together, but it's a lot of the content that we bring into the course, that there are benefits of nature across all areas of development as far as a human. So there's physical, emotional, cognitive, and social. And so this synthesizes a lot of the research that's out in the field, and it's just kind of a nice, concise visual of some of the different research components that we'll bring in through the content.
All right, so you have the link to the selected research, but every week for a while, we have them, they get to choose one of 2 articles to read. And these are original research articles. And so if you're in an academic setting, we have found it's very, as Courtney said, it's important that you have empirical evidence to show the impact of the natural environment on them, not just on their mental well-being, but on other aspects. So we have them read the actual research. While some of them come in knowing, oh, I feel so much better when I'm outside, they still need to see the actual evidence of that. So we've learned that when we first started, we started with more of the ANFT kinds of stuff, and we did the hard empirical research later. That didn't work very well. So if you happen to do this, we start with the hard research, but we start working in forest therapy walks and things like that, and then we get to Ben's book. So these are just some of the studies that we use, and we talk about specifically. Here's a few more. And if you notice, there's a range of different types of studies. We also include studies that have college student age specifically. So because again, as Courtney mentioned, they're very focused on self and identity still at this point. And we talked to them about the study about 120 minutes, up to 300 minutes in nature and things like that. And so we actually have them download the app Nature Dose so they can track how much time that they have been out in nature that week and see how they're doing on their goals for that. Courtney mentioned ways of knowing. So we feel like this is really helpful for them to frame the different things that we're showing them. So the empirical research is easy for them to understand because they're reading it in every other class. But the other ways of knowing, for example, if you look at the bottom of this, authority and intuition, inspiration, revelation, those are new to them. In fact, in an academic setting, I would argue that those may be contrary to what they're being taught. So we make sure to talk about there are many ways of knowing something, and sometimes you know something, but you can't always measure it. So that is, I feel like that is a great introduction to them to say, you know, here's some other things that your body may feel and you may sense that you may not be able to have hard physical evidence for, that we typically use in an academic setting. Is this me? Okay, sorry. We also talked to them about the mechanisms, some of the primary mechanisms that we think may be causing these benefits. Obviously, it's a synergistic effect of many things. We tend to go over the stress reduction theory, biophilia, attention restoration, and the immune response hypothesis, which is the fight inside theory that ANFT talks about. We talk about all of these. We feel like the attention restoration theory with the reduction of the mental fatigue really resonates with our students and is kind of the foundation for some of the research that we've done and building our courses on that. So that's the content part of the class. We also, as Courtney mentioned, we have students conduct their own research. So when we go out this next Wednesday to the state park, before they go, they will take the profile of mood states, and they will also take, a resilience scale, and they take it early in the morning. We make them come at 8 a.m. and we take that. And then we go out to the park. We spend a full day. The first half of the day is a forest therapy walk. And then they have lunch, and then the second half of the day is on their own at the park. And then before we leave, they take the same measures again, and we do the pre and post. So this chart that you're seeing here is this is the total of one of those instances when we went. I think this might have been last year's. Okay. So it's actually going down. The way the scale is measured, going down means they're negative mood states went down. So we have never had an instance when we spent a full day out at the park that we didn't get a p-value of 0.00. So, but we actually, Courtney does a really cool thing where she cuts the strips apart of their individual results from the spreadsheet, which I'm sure is no easy task. And she hands them out to the students, and so they can see what their individual body did on that particular item, on those different items. And then we see this, what you're seeing here is, for example, a class. But we show them all that there are subscales within this instrument of tension and anxiety, depression, all those kinds of things.
Yeah,
there's a lot of things in there that we don't have time to go over right now, but it's the profile of mood states. So the third part of this is practice. And we feel like this is very important to help them develop the practice of using nature to impact their well-being. Because if you don't show them how to practice it and you don't provide the time, it's not going to happen. So that's why 50% of our class time we're on field trips. So this course is a heavy lift. Courtney and I could not do it by ourselves. We team teach it. We also have TAs, which are teaching assistants. And we also have some help from our School of Sciences with arranging things like getting Suburbans, getting park passes, things like that. Someone that helps us with that. Probably the most impactful thing in the class besides the field trips is the assignment to do a sit spot every week for 30 minutes. And we took this directly from ANFT. And it's very hard for students at the beginning of the semester to do this. They don't know how they're going to do it. And we tell them, of course, they can have their phone with them, but it needs to be turned off. And they are just supposed to sit there. So the idea is, and we've done some research on this because we have thousands of these now over almost 4 years, that it gets easier for students throughout the semester and they get less distracted and are able to really focus on nature and see the benefits. And so this is just an example of a student earlier this semester, and we have them write a short reflection, because if you don't have them turn something in, that's not going to work. They have to take a photo of their sit spot and do a short reflection.
And I'll add on with the sit spots. We contemplated not having them do the reflection to not take away from it. But like Laura said, if there's not something that they have to turn in, they kind of don't do it. But it's really interesting to see the shift in tone that those happen. Right now, we're after 5 weeks, 6 weeks into the semester, and we don't see as much of this is awful. We're starting to see, I'm glad you're making us do this. And then towards the end of the semester, they return to them, it's really been fun to see that happen. One of the other things that we do, which seems to be one of the favorites with the students, is they participate in photo essays. And so 3 points over the course of the semester, they use a photo, a photo from sometime in the semester, whether it's one of our field trips or when they're out on their own, doesn't matter. And then they take this photo and they enhance it with some type of digital media. Kind of doing this too because that's their world. That's how they seem to communicate. But with this, they then write an artist statement to help us understand. So in the statement, they talk about their photo selection process. Where were they? Why did they select this photo? Why was it important to them? And then they describe the meaning behind their piece. So we want to know, in picking this, what personal insights did you find? What personal growth were you thinking about? Maybe what is your connection that you're feeling to the more than human world? And so they describe that meaning, and then they describe the symbolism that they hoped to make visible. So with the different additions with media that they've included on top of this photograph, what is the symbolism that you're wanting to convey to your viewer? And so to make that become a little more apparent with their alterations. They share these in class. They really love doing this. And then at the end, we don't tell them this earlier. We tell them after the third one is complete. For their final, they synthesize the 3. So they go back and look at their 3 again, read what their narratives were, and then synthesize that to see what growth did you find in yourself over the semester. Maybe it's identity, maybe it's just understanding of self, maybe it's really recognizing the connection they have with more than human world. And so they synthesize that, and we talk about that in a gallery walk. These are really fascinating. You can see the one here. She talked about, the picture of the monarch clinging to nature. She'd use masking tape to do that. On the far right side, she has a journal of what she had done during one of her sit spots. And then the green is reminding, it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be hard. I can find nature in little tiny parts throughout my day and a reminder to do that. One of the other things we do is the Green Space Design Project. They went out to their schools this last week. We work with some low-income elementary schools in a local district who have received tiny grants, called acorn grants, to build some gardening areas. And so we look at the outdoor learning environmental principles, OLE, and using that with the elements of attention restoration theory. They go out to these schools, they meet with them about what is the vision for these spaces that they would like to create for their students. They evaluate how they are with OLE, how they are with art, and then they create some different design principles that this school then can implement to build out this space. Looking at it as a partnership with that, then we hand over these designs and the schools can take what works, what doesn't, as little or as much of it as they want to. And then they have to identify how they've increased these elements of OLE and attention restoration theory. And so this is just an example of one of the design elements that one of the groups had provided for one of our elementary schools.
And I think it was last year, Courtney,
Yeah.
one of the schools found an Eagle Scout that needed a project, and he picked up their design and built out quite a bit of it.
The whole thing,
I think he built the whole thing out.
He did a GoFundMe to completely fund the rest of it and built out the whole thing.
Yeah, so we were really excited about that. All right, so as you know, we're in an academic setting, and to get funding to continue to offer the course, et cetera, we need some hard research on, does this make a difference? So our research team, and there's 5 of us, Courtney and I just are the ones that teach the class, but it really takes all of us, because especially our statistician who runs all the stats for us. And the first question that we asked was, how does this experience of taking the class influence student well-being? And let me explain briefly the design. So we compared for the last 3 years, students that were taking the class with like Trinity students that were not taking the class. And this is called a difference in difference design method. And what it does, it increases the impact, the quantitative impact of the methodology when you cannot randomly randomize your groups, because we can't randomize who takes the class. We do have some ideas about how to do that in the future, but for this we did not. So using the ruminations section of the rumination and self-reflection questionnaire and the mental health continuum, we gave at 4 points across this semester, we gave students in taking our class, the nature class, and similar students in other Trinity classes during the same 4 weeks of the semester, we gave them all of these instruments. And when we say similar students, we mean that they were matched during the analysis on level, like a sophomore taking 17 hours, for example. They were matched on things like gender, how much exercise they did, how much time they already spent outside, things like that, so that we can match students as closely as possible. And what we found were significant reductions in rumination, as well as the psychological component of the mental health continuum, which when you look at those, there's 3 scales within that mental health continuum. The psychological component items are the ones that our class is actually addressing. So we have found significant reductions every time we've done this, and we're doing it again this year. So we feel really positive that the class is making a difference for students, because if you think about it, the semester in college, you remember your college days, it only gets more intense and more stressful toward finals. And so what this is showing is that while our students and the students in the like classes start at about the same place, our students actually, their well-being tends to get better across the semester, where everybody else's tends to get worse, as you would expect in a more intense academic setting. So this is some kind of interesting novel research that we actually are making a difference with this class and what we're teaching them to do. We also this last year had some students help us with some additional research, and we did surveys and focus groups with the last 3 cohorts of the students that took the class. And what we found some interesting results. Mainly, we found that we made a big difference in how much students used nature to impact their well-being from before they took the class till after they took the class. We also have a lot of other data that we don't have time right now to share. But the fact that that's one student that even at the end of the semester, it was two years ago. Even at the end of the semester, he's like, I still don't buy into any of this. And we're like, that's okay. You know, it's going to work for some people. It's not going to work for everybody. But really, I think about one person in the last 3 years that we've taken the class didn't agree that being outside in nature actually did impact them. And what we found was they are still using going out in nature to help them improve their own well-being when they're stressed, when they need a break, much more than they were before, which is our overall goal for this.
So just some of the brief implications on this is that we've got, they're college students. And so we wanted something that they're not going to have to go out to the middle of Colorado to some beautiful mountain area to be able to use these practices. We send students all over the world after graduation, and we wanted something they could take with them that's accessible and inexpensive, that they can use to support their well-being and self-regulate wherever they're going to be. And we're finding that these practices are something that are going to be very beneficial for them. We also learned that it's got to be a credit-bearing course. At the beginning, we're like, hey, we've got all this research. Being outside is going to be so good with you. We're forest therapy guides. Let's go on a forest walk. And they're like, oh my gosh, I have no time. And we just elevated their stress right out of the gate, which was not what we wanted to be doing. So by creating the credit-bearing course, we were able to create and carve out that time and space for them, to be able to practice these things on a weekly basis and to really be able to feel personally the restorative benefits and to create that deeper connection with the more than human world. So the credit bearing piece of it in our instance where we are was very important. And setting it up to where it counts for a lot of different credits was also very helpful. We wish we could let everybody in that wants to take it, but we have an enormous wait list every semester. So it makes it something that kids really want to be taking. And that just tells you how I think important it is that they want to feel better. They want to know there's ways that they can impact their own well-being. And then what Laura was talking about in that last slide, that the field trips, the sit spots, and the photo essays were really the most influential aspects of the course. And a lot of that's where that comes in with the self-reflection, because I think that really connects with the idea of their age group, of their identity. They're forming that identity and figuring out how they fit into this bigger world that they haven't really paid attention to before this class. Just some hard lessons that we've kind of learned, that we're in Texas and it is hot. And so finding some ways to have strategies to mitigate for the heat as much as possible. There was a lot of resistance early, especially when it's August and September, getting students outside. So finding ways to mitigate that. As far as water, we had those wet like the cooling towels. We have a ice chest full of ice and water and cooling towels that we take every time we're outside. So finding ways to really kind of proactively know that that's going to be there. And I know we all have different weather that we would be dealing with, but really paying attention to that. And how do you do that on a larger scale when you've got 30 students, you're moving around the city? We talked a little bit about considering the order of the curriculum development and those different ways of knowing. We found out, after the first year, we had to really rethink how the pacing and the order of the curriculum that we brought in, that we needed to start with the empirical research before we introduced the intuitive way of knowing. And I think that really helped when they had the empirical and they're like, okay, yes, I can see benefits in this. And then when we brought in Ben's book, they were ready for it. They had something that they could connect with that. And when we done it the first year in the opposite direction, a lot of them just weren't ready for that jump. So that was really something that was important. Developing the authentic work as much as possible. So, again, if it didn't have some kind of product, it was really hard to get them to do it. But as much as you could, having it authentic, I think that's why the green space design is something they really like, because it, they actually are handing something over to these schools, which is usable. And then we'll continue to be amazed. This is year 4, and we are still developing more partners as we go. So if this is something you're considering doing, from the beginning, creating as many partnerships as you can really think to solidify and just make it really transparent that you want to be doing this and you're gonna need to help one another throughout this process. Right now, we're working with Texas Parks and Wildlife, San Antonio Parks and Rec, our Trinity's outdoor recreation, our OREC. That's where we got all the kayaks and the canoes, and they've been great. Our facilities managements, as far as Laura was saying, we have to have Suburbans and vans when we're getting 30 plus students around and about. That's something that we have to facilitate. We work with the Will Smith Zoo School, which is the outdoor learning environment. The Olay
It's a nature school.
is a nature school and preschool, and it's the demo site for Texas as far as outdoor learning environments. We work with a large independent school district as far as the school project that we do, and we just continue to build partnerships into that. So that would be something that from the very beginning to really kind of consider what partners do we have at our disposal, how can we make this reciprocal in different ways, and what that might look like. For instance, the Texas Parks and Wildlife, we have entry into all the parks. They work with us on that. And then at the end, we have a connected to nature scale that they just want to see how it ends up and what our results are. And so it's kind of, we try and make it reciprocal in as many ways as possible. And that's kind of it. We want to try and leave as much time for questions as we could. I know we talked pretty quickly and went through a lot of that. We did put some links into the chat, which may give you some more information, but we wanted to leave time for questions and to see what people were wondering or thinking.
We see some questions in the chat. I don't know, Gita, if you're going to facilitate questions or people can just open up and ask. What works best for y'all?
Hi, thank you. Yeah, Courtney and Laura, thank you so much. Yeah, if anyone has a question, you can raise your hand and then unmute when we can call on your, that's okay. So Stacy, do you want to unmute? And then Husan could go after Stacy. Stacy, it looks like you are unmuted. Do you want to try to speak?
Oh, great. I just found out I could unmute. Thank you. I can't start my video. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Thanks so much. I enjoyed your presentation. I used to be in teacher education at a liberal arts college in Maine. So you're inspiring me that perhaps I'll bring this back. I also have children who are 24 and 21. So like you, I experienced many of these same aspects of being interested in kind of late adolescent well-being, as well as K-16 and lifelong education. One reason I love ANFT, and I'm also certified with Apollo, is because I love lifelong learning. So just thank you for all of it. So I guess one piece that I'm particularly interested in is, given that you are in pre-service teaching, is maybe some of the connections that you've made with some of your undergraduate students with supporting pre-service teacher ed and some of the other specific work. I really liked the idea of the kind of the service learning work with green space and some of the local schools. So I am, again, so inspired because even, as a mid-50 something lifelong learner and educator, I'm still bringing the sit spot practice into my own well-being. And I'm so motivated as a teacher and a yoga teacher to continue practicing and continue teaching people of all ages to do this. So I guess that's why I'm particularly interested in this link that you're talking about, of not only might we seed helping undergraduates do this, but that as we help undergraduates learn, that they will also bring this into other organizations, into their work in the world. So I think that's clear enough as a question. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful. In fact, we started out working with our pre-service teachers, and then we just shifted it because we are primarily an undergraduate institution. Courtney is going to share a couple of, go to the ed prep.
Okay.
Courtney, when we find them in a minute, we have a couple of publications that have come out recently. Website.
I've got one already in there.
Okay.
Awesome.
Publications that are about the pre-service teaching. And so when those come up, you should be able to see those.
I have the second one in.
Okay, I don't see them.
Not yet.
Okay.
Give me a sec.
Sorry.
I'm getting there.
All right, thank you. Is it what Swan? Shen? How did you divide up the roles and work for your class with the instructors? That's a really good point. Courtney and I are very opposite. I am very deadline planning, organized. That's just how I work. She is the visionary kind of, and she's really good with making all the connections and networking. And so it kind of just falls, I think, naturally to us to do different things within the course. Is that a good way to say
No,
it?
I think it helps that we've worked together before with different things. And so
Mhm.
I think that's been a benefit for us. And and being teacher educators, I think we know in our heads that you need to work to someone's strengths to really elevate those. And so I think we've been able to recognize those the best we can. And just if there's a discussion about it, we're like, okay, this has to be done. What makes sense? And
Mhm.
and we've kind of just divided it that way. Not sure there's a really good science to it.
I think we both do all we can, if
Mhm.
that makes sense. And if someone's having a down week or a down, you know what I'm saying? Like the other one will just pick it. I mean, I don't know if that say, as teachers, I think you just both do it all, if that makes sense. We don't kind of say, this is yours, this is mine. We both are in class every week. We both go on all the field trips. We don't do what might be traditional co-teaching where this class is yours, the next class is mine kind of thing. It's just the fact that we need, because there's so many moving parts to this class with the field trips, we need everybody there all the time. And our TAs are essential as well. They help organize the transportation. And then they also do things like bring the water and get the towels and the ice for the field trips and help drive and things like that. So
we do meet
yeah.
together every week.
Yeah.
There's a set time where the two of us meet. We also have our TAs meeting with us. So we look at what's coming up, what the agendas are, what needs to be done, what makes sense for someone to do, someone else to do. For example, the field trip that's coming up, I'm going to be on campus working with surveys and code numbers and making sure everybody's in the right vehicle. Laura's going to be going to get the lunches, and then she's heading out to the park so that we can go through the admission piece with Texas Parks and Wildlife. You have to have the license plates numbers and all those type of things. So we just look at, here's what has to happen, and we divide and conquer the best that we can to our ability.
See, I'm trying to get to Swan. Can you unmute?
Yes.
Your question?
Oh, can we unmute?
There.
There we go.
Okay, so hi, Courtney.
Hello.
So I'm Shen, and actually we connected on emails past few months.
Yes.
Hope you remember me. So
You're
yeah,
working with one of our students.
Lydia. Yeah, Lydia
Oh,
is.
yes, that's right. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So we talk about this. It's really a good time, and I'm very inspired by all your work, and really happy to connect with you all. And as I'm doing exactly the really similar things now in this semester, and then now it's in the middle of the semester, and we all practice these spots as well. And it's really a good experience with my student. I actually see like they're changing from the beginning of the semester, like a poker face. They're being really cool, and you know, toward the middle of the semester, they're trying to they're more like open up by nature, and I really do see the value of doing this. You know, on like our college students, and I'm very particular interested in how you incorporate like doing this post and pre and post survey in during your courses, because I also do like I do like pre and post in the beginning and the at the end of the semester. And also like I do 2 midterm check-in surveys, but I feel like sometimes they're really reluctant to do that. And then I also wanted to put a lot of different scales in the survey. So just wanted to know like what's the challenge and how did you manage that? Yeah. Thank you.
I do think the number of scales is important. We had to pick which ones we wanted to really focus on that we were doing with a control group and comparing. And we've got the 2 that we use for that. And then when we were doing the full day field trip where they look at their own personal data, we wanted different scales because you don't want to build in the instrument fatigue with that's going to be something that's going to be a problem. We did do it at 4 points in the semester. I believe we're going to go
CJ's
to
here.
Who?
CJ. CJ, are you here? One of our students that took our class.
Oh, sorry. Anyway, I'm sorry. So yeah, so the instrument fatigue is something that we really did think about. And then our statistician is saying from the last 3 years of data that we have that those 0.2 and 3 aren't giving us as much information. So we might just go to a pre and a post at the beginning of the semester and end of the semester to kind of minimize even more so the fatigue. We tell them up front, we do have IRB, Institutional Review Board, permission and everything, but we tell them too, you're going to take the instruments because we want to show you at the end as a class how you have responded. So we're doing it as part of the class. Now you're going to be doing it anyway. Would you sign this release to, so that we can use your results as part of our research data? And I'm not sure that we've ever had anybody not do it because they're going to be doing it for the course itself, which is just part of the course, which you could use for research or you could not. But we want them to see, based on your reading a lot of this research that's out in the field, these are the same instruments that you're seeing referenced in these same articles. And we're going to see how, as a collective group, how we compare. So.
Okay, so I like what you like incorporate the research pieces into your course because I try like at the beginning I separate and then it's really hard for people to like recruiting them in the class because they enroll in the class but not enroll in my research. So I like that advice. And I have another question. So in terms of the like a control group, did you how did you find people? Because like in the beginning of semester, like you will know people, the composition of the people at the beginning of the semester, but how did you find people match these?
Are you talking about, okay, so since we have a 5-member research team, we used 2 of my other classes that are not in environmental studies. We've used one of Courtney's other classes. Then we have 3 other members of our research team, and we've used classes that they teach. And so we offer it to those students. And if those students complete all of the surveys, at the 4 points, they get 1 extra point added to their final grade at the end of the semester, which is kind of a carrot to help them fill out those surveys. And so given that we need as many students, we need like about 2 to 3 times as many students as we in the control group as we have in our class, and we usually don't have trouble with that. Everybody wants an extra point on their final grade because it actually every semester it moves several people from for a B to an A, and so I think that's good. I see that Camilla's here. I wanted to just say hi. I don't know if you can unmute and share. Say hi. Camilla, are you still here? She's one of our students our former students.
Grad school. She's not muted.
You're unmuted, but I'm not sure if she's here right now. But anyway, I'm so glad you're here. If you have a minute, we'd love to hear your take on all of this, since you were the part of the recipients of this. How could you tie this to classes on ecology and sustainability? I think it would be a natural fit. Basically, I would, if you've got some courses already in place. Oh, this is a different Camilla. I'm sorry. Sorry about that, Camilla. I think, if you have classes already in place that you have a little curriculum wiggle room. You can add things to that class that are pieces, for example, what pieces fit best, whether it's, I don't know, if forest therapy will fit best, whether it's some of the research, whether it's just even taking your classes outside to do one sit spot, for example, just to give them a little bit about that. So I would say if you've already got classes in place, that for us was the biggest hurdle, is to get this class not only developed, but approved, because it's very different. And I will say what the students like best is they're so tired of the academic load they have. Our university is highly competitive. Our SAT and ACT scores are so high now, I honestly don't think I could get in anymore. There's no, there's no way. And so they're very stressed. They're very everything's very competitive. And this is the only class that they have that is designed with a completely different focus. So I think that's very helpful for them.
We'll say too, one of the instruments that we've used periodically is the connectedness to nature scale. And we know sustainability, that people are more apt to take care of things that they feel connected with. And so, you know, being able to show that just spending time out in these spaces and creating those connections and a relationship basically that we see coming through in their sit spot responses and their photo essays, we see the relationship that they're building with the more than human world. And so with that increased connection to nature, then you're going to have, and you know, a more I guess more motivation for sustainable practices that you would have later on. I do teach, usually I teach a first year experience climate change course, and we do include one of the forest therapy walks in that climate change course as well. Although we keep saying forest therapy, I will tell you the psychology department lost it when we proposed this the first time, so we had to take out therapy all the way through the syllabus. You know, that's a different, which is one of those little bitty things with academia that you don't really, you know, think about going in.
Well, Courtney and Laura, our time sadly is over, and just wanting to bring this to a close. And I just want to say again, thank you so very much for what you're doing and the impact you're having. And hopefully this will spread more and more through other universities. So thank you for leading the way for us.
We
And
can say we put a link to the syllabus in there earlier. When I put those links in at the very beginning, there is a direct link to our full syllabus. It's all open access, so people can get
wonderful.
that.
Great. Well, thank you so much. This has been a wonderful experience. We appreciate you being here and doing all you're doing out there. Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.